I don't know how you finished. I mean, I guess you said you weren't actually ready, but I don't know how you finished ahead of me, because when you said, give me 5 minutes, I had already begun, and I did not pause at any point.
I did not pause either.
Somehow you got displaced in time, or your episode was slightly shorter than mine, and I think you got the better deal.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence, for I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known, the danger of
the Watchers of Earth 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me as always is my co-host, Seth.
I mean, as always, I'm always here.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he got stabbed on the way to the train, but our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here, but is sworn only to watch and never interfere.
Today we watched episode 5 of Miss Marvel, Time and Again. It's one episode, but it has 2 words in the title. But
3 words in the title.
2. Well, it has 2 topics, time and again.
Is again a topic? Again just seems like an aspect of time.
We didn't watch episodes 5 and 6 of Miss Marvel, Time and Again. We watched episode 5 of Miss Marvel, Time and Again. We watched it twice.
I don't think that inflection helped make your point.
No, it didn't. The episode's so nice, we watched it twice. The episode's so nice, directed by Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, written by Fatma Asghar, and first aired on July 6th, 2002. 2 and 2, just like the episode title. Andrew, in a sentence or less, what did you think? Yeah, me too.
I feel bad because at this point it feels like punching down.
So,
and let's
do a sentence or less.
Like it.
Kind of crazy. I'm gonna do something crazy. So,
is this post-cut or pre-cut?
This is pre-cut. You're gonna post-cut it anyways.
Okay, well then we'll cut here.
You can decide in post, and since you already said we'll cut here, you're gonna cut it.
The decision has been made.
The decision has already been made. So when we talk on Fridays throughout the day, do you ever sit there and go, recording's gonna be rough? Because we were a little pessimistic, apathetic. We were talking about a couple things earlier today.
I guess sometimes when we have those talks on Fridays, or just generally throughout the week, where I go, I feel like this says
something about the recording.
Well, sometimes I just think, like, I feel like this is a recording topic that I wish I could save for the recording. Especially, like, usually I always say, I hate typing. I hate sending. I like texting. I don't want to call anybody. But, like, for discussions, I hate typing. I hate trying to get my thoughts organized. It also becomes, like, a weird race because anytime a message is sent, and I like to space my messages out.
I'm already at it.
Yeah, there's already and I got to go backwards to a thought I had 5 minutes ago and don't even remember what the hell I was trying to get at. And so our discussion today, I was thinking, like, I feel like this is something I want to, like, hash out for the show. But I also had the same thought where I was like, I think I'm in a bad mood before we start.
And I kind of felt like I was a little, like I said, I felt like I was a little pessimistic, apathetic during our discussions today. However, I kind of started this episode in a good mood, I guess. I don't know. We just kind of we were like 3, 2, 1. Hey! And I kind of came to life.
Oh, I thought you meant like sitting down to watch the episode. When it started, I think it may have been because of our discussion this morning. I made a conscious effort to try and stay positive.
I do that every time with Miss Marvel. I mentioned
and when it opened up differently, like when it was like the flashback isn't just like Kamala in the past, it's actually like, here's some history. I was like, here's the thing.
They modified the Marvel Studios logo as like the little...
Yeah, I thought that was
history
fun.
Video. That was
but
good.
Like,
yeah.
Here's the thing. I think the story it's telling is fine. I think the partition is interesting and all of that. The problem is I don't care about that story in the context of Ms. Marvel. because for the largest part, actually almost the entirety of this episode has nothing to do with Kamala. That whole backstory isn't Kamala's backstory. It's like I've been saying in other episodes, it's lore. It doesn't actually lead to anything for Kamala. It leads to a moment where she hands the photograph, but none of that had to be all of this backlog history, not history, but like secret history crap that I just don't feel like has anything to do with anything. And it does, because the villains are, I don't even know anymore. Like, I don't know what this show is doing. I have no clue. And when I was editing the episode that went up today, I meant to send you something. I don't know what it was, but when I was listening, every once in a while, when I listen back on an episode when I edit, I'll have a thought that I either forgot to say or I'll hear something and then have a new thought. When I mentioned that the Trail of Light is going to be the bangle and it's going to be, she's probably going to make an arm of stars or whatever. When I was listening back to that, when I was editing, I thought, you know what? I think it's one step further. I think Kamala is actually going to be in the past, not viewing the past, and she is going to make the Trail of Stars, and that's fucking dumb as shit. And I sat through this episode going, you know what? I don't think that's the case, because we haven't seen Kamala at all for the longest time. And then when she shows up and then she starts interacting with people, I was like, fucking dumb bullshit. I hate this.
You mentioned it. I totally agree. I feel like it's all just punching down at this point, and I feel really bad. And, I finished this episode, and I sat there, and I said, I'm really trying to like this. I don't think I've watched worse stuff than this. I've watched worse stuff than this in the MCU. This might be very, very disappointing for me. And I think it's more, we were kind of talking about this earlier. I think it's just, well, I'm going to kind of contradict myself when we get into more of this discussion later. I think this is the most middling. I think this is like, I really want to like this. And I don't know why. I mean, I like the idea of Miss Marvel. I think looking at Miss Marvel as a show, it looks interesting.
For me, I think wanting to like it is true, but I think it's more, I don't want to hate it. I don't want to be the guy, especially the white guy, saying, I don't like this show.
There is some of like the Black Panther stuff where I didn't love Black Panther when I watched it. And granted, I watched it later than everybody else. I wasn't in the zeitgeist. But I do remember you having that issue where it's just like, I don't hate it because I'm the white guy. Oh, and I say hate, just not thinking. I don't care for it because I'm the white guy. I don't care for it because I just don't care for it as a movie. And I don't disagree with you there either. Like, I think, I don't have like a ton of knowledge of the culture or how the day-to-day is for an Indian household. And at the same time, as someone who has no knowledge of any of that stuff, it looks believable. I don't have any problems with it. I feel like people who haven't seen themselves on television and who haven't seen themselves in a big thing like a Marvel property, I'm sure this is really, really cool, and I think that probably goes a long way. And that's not to sell them short. I just feel bad that this is what it is. Like, that this is what they can be like, hey, I'm here. And I view it as a white guy saying, but is it good? Like, the representation is probably, I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about it. I assume the representation is fine. Everything I've heard makes it sound like the representation is there. And I just feel bad that I come out of it saying, I just don't care about the story the show is telling me.
I feel bad because I feel sometimes like the guy that says, I'm not racist, but, because I am constantly like, I feel like every time I sit down to these, I open up by saying, like, I don't want to be this guy. But sometimes it does sound like, I'm not racist, but. But, like, my problems with the show have nothing to do with all of that. Nothing whatsoever. Same thing with Black Panther. Same thing with Shang-Chi. Same thing with Black Widow. None of those had anything to do with the quote-unquote controversial thing. The only one was, I did have a problem with Captain Marvel, and hopefully the context is there in the episode because it's going to sound real weird out of context here, but I thought there was a lot of like girl power that felt aggressively at odds with the movie standing on its own. But anyway, in this, I just don't feel like, I feel like the show is completely incohesive. I mentioned, I think last episode, that each episode kind of introduces something that is then resolved by the end of the episode.
Or ignored.
I feel like everything about Kamala has been ignored. It's all in the first 2 episodes, and then we were done. Maybe first 3. I have trouble keeping track anymore. We're on episode 5, so it must have been first 3, because 4 is when she left the country. But, like, almost all of that's done. We have 1 episode left suddenly Kamran has powers that make, I don't know what, they make no sense, and I guess the villains are the damage control now?
I assume they're going to fight damage control in the last episode.
It is laughably bad how it just like, I mentioned last episode how it lingers way too long at the train station. In this episode, it's just like...
Explosion! Credits.
Yeah, done.
It's like that bad movie, that Death Blow or something, where he like shoots the guy and before his body parts even hit the ground, the credits roll.
I don't feel like this show is really telling a cohesive story. I don't feel like I don't really understand what it's doing. I understand the idea of like, again, from a cultural thing, the partition is something culturally relevant. And tying it in there, I can see that being of interest to someone wanting to see their culture. But as someone looking at it objectively as a story, that feels disconnected from Kamala. I know it's part of her family, and I think a better show with more time could pull it all together. But in this show, it just says, the partition is a thing that happened. And then it cuts to this episode, and it goes, Kamala was there, and she was the Sea of Stars. Ooh, what a twist. You didn't see that coming. Now she hands her grandmother a picture, and there's emotions. And I just felt like this doesn't really have to do with Kamala. It has to do with not even really her family. It's just her ancestor. But it doesn't have anything to do with her. It doesn't have anything to do with her lineage. Like, as an extension that it needs to be Kamala's story, or that it needs any of this. It just feels like stuff happening.
This is the episode we get canceled. So, for context here, I don't know if I'm stupid, but I don't understand anything here. And I don't know if I'm stupid or if I'm just apathetic and I don't care. You mentioned the partition. I mentioned last time, I think the partition is an interesting thing I didn't really know about before. I've kind of gone into like the Wikipedia every now and then and looked at some things. Seems like an interesting, as interesting as any kind of crazy historical event is. But I agree with you. I feel like the partition, again, these thoughts are only ours and we are two white men in America. But I feel like it's just kind of, I would have loved to have episodes and explore the partition and how it affects people. But it just kind of feels like, I don't know how else to compare this, and this is probably dead wrong. And again, this is the episode we get canceled. But like, I feel like if we were telling a story about somebody in the US or whatever, and they're like, the Civil War, but like, didn't really do anything. They just said like, it's the Civil War. You have to go to the time of the Civil War. But it didn't affect anything. You said it didn't really go with the lineage or anything. It just like, it feels like it's just a word.
Again, I feel like the problem here, for me...
If people want to add us, I will certainly apologize and try and understand better. That is what I try to do. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. If we say something wrong, add us, and I will try and amend it. It's so hard to talk about. I don't want to be bad.
The problem here, and God, I know you wanted to say your thing. I wish you hadn't cut me off because I forgot my sentence.
Sorry.
Give me a second. I'm going to probably repeat the beginning of the sentence
You're good.
6 times. I feel like the problem here is kind of similar to the Avengers con at the beginning of the series, where it feels kind of, and I am, again, like you said, speaking out of my ass as a white guy who doesn't really know anything.
We don't fucking know anything. We're worthless.
It feels like it's in here because culturally, that is probably something extremely relevant to someone in this culture. It is probably something that they grew up with, something that they are relatively aware of, or that their family dealt with. And so if you're dealing with family and they made the Bengal part of her family, that is something that is going to come up. And someone said, like, look, this is an important part of history. We can put it in here. We can tie it into this Marvel stuff, make, a broader Marvel universe. The problem is, I don't feel like it has anything to do with this.
With anything.
Story. It doesn't have to do with Kamala. And in a story that focuses on Kamala and her family, and I think this is, again, a problem of it being a 6-episode series, in a series that focuses on Kamala, her family, her relationships, this show doesn't do that. It shows it. It says, here's the thing, and then it moves on. And that's what the Avengers party felt like, is it just goes like, here's the thing, Captain America's ass. Y'all love that. But I go, how does that work here? Who knows this? And I feel like someone who lived this, kind of like I said with Captain Marvel, if you were a woman who felt any sort of issues with the patriarchy in your life, I feel like a lot of that shorthand is just going to work for you. You're going to go, I lived through that, I know that, and I don't need it to fit seamlessly. I fill in my own blanks. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here, because in a larger story that spends more time with Kamala and her family and her relationship to all this kind of stuff, I feel like this would actually fit well, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the time travel crap because I think that's stupid anytime it happens in anything. But in this, it's just, like you said, it's a word that's mentioned, and then she goes there, and she's only there for one scene where it's not really about her relationship to what's happening there or her family or anything. It's about the twist of her being the trail of stars that leads her grandmother to her great-grandfather.
And again, maybe I'm stupid, and I mean, I could also just want more from the show than it is. I feel like the show's kind of teased the partition a lot.
I don't think it has. I think it has mentioned it in the episode of the wedding or before the wedding when they're all at dinner. And then again when she sees the episode where she flashes back, last episode, where she talks to her grandmother about it. Maybe it's been mentioned more, but I really don't think it has. I think it's like the wedding, where the wedding was just like, there's a wedding happening. And then an episode later, the wedding happens.
This could just be me being interested for a thing that the show does
and it could
not
be me
seem
not
to
remembering.
Be interested in. But I would have liked, because this is where my entire feelings of Miss Marvel, I think, are culminating. And we still have another episode to go. But it's like so hard to talk about this show anymore.
I liked when I just was, like I said, this feels like punching down now, because I was thinking before, I liked when we sat down and the Marvel movies were the big thing. Everybody loves them. They're huge. They're making billions of dollars. Who cares about two yahoos screaming that they're stupid? Or, well, one yahoo and then the other one being like, I kind of liked them until we hit, I don't know, phase 2. And it felt like, whatever, we're just here voicing our dissenting opinions to the ether. But this feels like punching down. And not because the show is below me, but just because I don't think the show as a concept does not deserve someone like me or anyone telling it it's doing it wrong. But I don't think the show is good. And we dug this grave of being on a show where we talk about every stupid Marvel thing that comes out. And now
these are our thoughts.
This
these are not, these are opinions. These are not facts. This is how we engaged with the property. And if people like it, they're within their bounds to like it. This is not if you like it, you're dumb and you like bad things. This is how I reacted to it. But I agree with you that at the very least, I agree with you that I don't think the show knows what it wants to do with any of its parts. But I agree with you that at the very least, the show has a fairly prominent through line of family. Correct? You would agree with that.
Yes.
Because you said that.
I feel like it's surface level.
Right. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, where, the little bits of what I've kind of read on the partition, the little bits we've seen here, from what I understand, the partition is a truly horrible time for this group of people that I don't need to see these people suffer. But I personally was kind of interested in kind of seeing more of the partition and how it affects people and things like that. And my problem with this episode is that it says, hey, here we are. We're in the partition. But Aisha doesn't deal with the partition on screen because she's dealing with her own kind of, like, I'm a djinn. And
Aisha doesn't deal with the partition at all. In fact, the partition almost seems to be a convenience for her because it gives her an excuse to escape the day after what's-her-name shows up.
But the only thing that I ever really feel like interacted with... Well, I guess there's 2 points that I think interacted with the partition. One, at the beginning, you see Kamala's great-grandfather saying his spiel about what it means to them. Cool. At the end, you see her grandmother get separated during a big train. Everybody's trying to board the train because they're all displaced and all that stuff. And there's kind of a throwaway line about I can't buy groceries. But I feel like we spent so long in this time period. And I personally wanted to kind of see how these people interacted with the partition, what it meant to them. Again, it might have just been me reading into it. Early on in the series, her brother says something about how every family has the partition story. We see little bits and bobs of like, there's the time where they find the bangle and they're like, we gotta go, the partition's here. I felt like people kind of talked about it a little bit. And so I was kind of, I think in the last episode you said they're going to be in the partition, or they're going to be in the past for like 10 minutes or whatever, not most of the episode. And I thought, well, maybe they'll spend like the whole episode and at the end they go to America. And I feel like for as much time as we spent here, again, the partition was just kind of a word. And like you said, there's probably some shorthand here if you have experience with that. I'm sure it did everything. I'm sure it probably read better or watched better. But as someone kind of coming into this and getting interested in this, it felt like a backdrop that was kind of propped up a little more than it was actually dealt with, if that makes sense. And that kind of bummed me out because... So my big problem with the episode, I'm going to kind of jump around here, and I mean, we don't know how to talk about this anymore. But when Aisha gets separated and gets stabbed, and then Kamala's grandmother gets separated from her great-grandfather, I felt so bad, and I don't know if this is a me thing. I don't know if this is just how the show was directed thing. I did not care. I felt like the show thought it was tense, thought the stakes were high, thought that this was a scene where people were at their limits, and I just did not care. It just read as images to me.
I don't know if I did not care. I guess I didn't care because I kind of just didn't really care in general. But I think part of the problem with that is, and this is unfair, but like, we already know the outcome. We've been told it multiple times.
I don't think I was directed by a field of stars is that interesting of a story hook. And like you said, we know the outcome. We know that it's a Jin-related thing.
And I guess the problem here is I did feel like it had a lot of like dramatic, I think it was even slow motion of like her grandmother crying and then her great-grandfather calling out her name, and then...
It also doesn't help that child is not very good, and I apologize.
Well, children actors never are. And her grandmother's like stabbed and holding her side and wobbling around, and it just kind of keeps cutting between them. And I was just kind of like, I don't care, especially because I know Aisha's never seen again. I know her grandmother follows the Trail of Stars to her dad and gets back to the train. So like, I know the resolution to all this kind of stuff. And like I said, like as soon as they said Trail of Stars, I mean, it's not hard to figure out what was going to happen. It was stupid. Stupid's unfair. It was just, it felt like it was going like, ooh, look at this. Look at the twist. I bet you didn't see this coming. And I was just like, what do you mean I didn't see it coming? You already told me. It's like someone telling you the punchline and go, wait, oh, I forgot the setup. And then telling you the setup and then telling you the punchline and be like, isn't that hilarious? And it's like, well, I already knew the punchline. Half the joke's gone.
I felt like the scene was filmed in a way that I should be invested. And I was not.
Well, that's what I was saying, where it was like slow and...
Well, and that's the other thing is that like all these people are trying to board these trains. It's crowded. But like, I just never really felt like they couldn't... I mean, even though I know the end here, but I just never really felt like... I mean, maybe I'm stupid. I don't really know how her grandmother just like got separated. She just like walked away, I guess. I guess she walked after Aisha.
He is like throwing a bag in the window of a train, and then he turns around and he's like, where'd she go? And I was like, how did you lose her? I mean, I know that there's like a lot going on, but it wasn't like when they were walking through the crowd and he's like got kind of like holding her hand and she's walking behind him. I was like, someone's going to bump him and then she's going to like get swept up in the crowd. Like that's what's going to happen. But he's literally just like, he stops and he's throwing stuff into a train. And then he turns around and he's like, where'd my daughter go? And I was like, when did you lose her? She's like far away. She's like way down the path. She didn't seem to wander anywhere. She seemed to have just like, you let go of her hand at some point and she just stood there.
Well, and it's a crowded scene, but it doesn't feel busy. Like people aren't hurriedly pushing.
That's true, but I guess I don't care. That was where the shorthand, I was just like, there are lots of people. He seems stressed.
But if people were pushing and like trying, if people were hurrying, then losing a child in that short amount of time is a little bit more stressful and I'm a little more invested. This felt like what could have possibly happened. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying and I agree. I guess this is one of those things where it's just like, I don't really care.
And similar to when Kamala shows up and she's like, hey, I'm going to use these little platforms, jump on these platforms. It didn't feel like a powerful scene. It didn't feel like we're going to like, it felt like her grandmother just kind of like turned around and walked back to her father. Not that they had to find each other. And again, this might be me being stupid, but every time they referenced, like, I followed a trail of stars, I felt like this was a fucking mile-long trail. But it was like 20
It's even more weird because Kamala makes the little platforms for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I thought she was going to like lift her above the crowd.
Yeah. But she's like hop from platform to platform, which is way more inconvenient than just walking. It's not even like she knew where her great-grandfather was. As far as I can tell, she just said like, I don't know, follow this path. It's going to work out, I guess. But then it cuts to Aisha and her eyes glow, which seems to unlock the bangle. And it seems like the trail of stars she actually follows at the end are maybe made by her bangle.
I have since completely have no idea how the bangle works. And it's fine. Again, I'm always the guy who's just like, why do you need to explain anything or everything? I have no idea this magic system at all.
I thought you needed to wear the bangle in order to do anything, but apparently she just has to look at a picture of her family and say a little poem about finding... It was something along the lines of like, what you're searching for is searching for you. That's not it.
I agree. I thought the bangle like unlocked your Jinn powers. I don't understand. I mean, like you said, that is not true. That is visibly not true. I don't understand the whole plot of the clandestine because the clandestine is just like, we need to get back. You can help us get back. I can't do it right now. We're going to burn this motherfucker to the ground. And then at the end, they're just like, there's the portal. It just happened. Apparently, I don't know why it happened here. I don't know why they were able to do it.
It's because we need to get it out of the way, because every single plot element in the show is not the plot element the show actually cares about. The clandestine were thrown in out of nowhere to suddenly be the villains of the show. And then in this one, they're just like,
just wake up and they accomplish their task.
They wake up, they accomplish their task, and then it's so weird because then they're like, we can go through. And I thought the portal being open was the problem. That it was going to like tear reality or something. But then the one lady walks up to it and she's like, we can just walk through. And Kamala's looking like, I got to stop them. And I thought like, the portal's already open. At this point, who cares if they walk through it? I thought the issue was opening the portal, not anybody crossing the barrier. But what do I know? Maybe I don't remember.
Well, the one guy, they said in the previously on that they were going to like come through and then convert everything on Earth to like the clandestine world. But that's not what's happening.
But they try and walk through and then they like crystallize and then disintegrate and the bones are there, and that was funny. I like that.
Well, I took that, maybe you didn't. I did not take that as, oh, they just got fucked. This is not right. I took that as, they are beings of light. They no longer need their bodies.
Oh, no, I took that as they are fucked.
Okay, I took that as there
was a problem. Because what's-her-face, the villain lady, is like, I can make it through. And then Kamala has a thing where she's like, what about your son? And she's like, I left him behind.
I'm
like,
a bad
person. Go back and get him. And that was like a moment that I like in a better show where these characters meant something. I like the moment where she's like, then just go back to him. And I was like, you know what? That's like a good moment if it was written around characters.
If I had any sort of investment, I felt honestly, I mean, other than Kamala's a good girl, I felt honestly that was so out of place.
It felt like a Hail Mary pass to just like convince her not to go through the portal. But then she's like, I can close it, but I close it the same way I would walk through it anyway. And then she disintegrates, but then she's like, I'm going to say my son's name and then somehow send magic powers to him. Powers that I don't have because I need a bangle, but now he doesn't. He just has Kamala powers without the bangle because his mom died. So maybe if Kamala's mom died, she'd get power. Well, he's a first generation.
And then Kamran's sitting over at Bruno's and he's just like, my mom, who definitely left me in a maximum security prison, is going to come back for me.
I know.
Like, I don't know. I just fucking nobody has done shit in this show. I feel like we need give me 12 fucking episodes of this shit. Spend time to tell your story. Bruno is totally nothing. Nakia is absolutely totally nothing. Kamran is nothing. Kamran's mother is nothing.
Kamala's barely anything because Kamala is only a character that really has any sort of like anything going on, conflict or anything, really in the first 3-ish episodes. Once she goes to Karachi, she doesn't really have anything
to do.
Yeah, she's like she's there for a reason to learn the lore and speak to her grandmother, and then she meets the Red Dagger group, and then there's a fight. But she's not really like at that point, her agency is almost essentially gone. She's just there because her grandmother says, "Come here," and then she's like, "I can learn more things," but she doesn't really learn anything that she didn't already know.
Yeah, I mean, she talks to, like, Red Dagger and the Daggerites, but, like...
They just tell her, like, a slightly remixed version of the information she already knew about the Jinn. She speaks to her grandmother, and her grandmother tells her a slightly remixed version of the information she already knew from her family.
The biggest takeaway I get from this show is, like, basically any scene where her and her mother and or her and her grandmother are in it, and I am on board, and I understand what's happening. I am invested in the characters. Everything outside of that, I feel like, is such aimless gobbledygook.
I will say, though, in this episode, I like that her mom found out. I like that her mom didn't freak out like I thought she would when she found out. But I thought the scene where her mom found out was so underplayed and nothing. She's just like, what's going on? And when she first sees her, I was like, did she not see the portal in the giant like crystal shield she made? Because she is not reacting properly.
But that's the thing. They don't have time to react properly. The same thing with Kamala, who goes to the past and sees her grandmother as a child and her great-grandmother and like affects the past. She is so composed.
Mm-hmm. But she just comes back and like, here's a picture. This is for you.
She's like, hey, I went to the past and found this picture, Nana. And it's just like, okay, you did more than that. Like,
you're the fucking Trail of Stars?
You're the fucking reason this is all happening. But nobody has time to react because we have to spend so much time doing nothing. Setting things up and abandoning them. Setting things up and just... I mean, Red Dagger is at the end because I guess he was there. And he's just kind of like, all right, peace, y'all.
He feels like me, where he's like, I feel like you and your family have a lot to deal with, so I got to get out of your way here.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, wait, we're done with that stuff. Now we got to do our thing.
Give me my costume piece.
Yeah, give me my costume piece, and
give me
also
my treasure.
I need you.
I went through this dungeon. Give me my treasure.
Also, I need you to explain how you're going to show up in the finale.
Yeah.
So that when he's like, I'm just a phone call away, and I'm like, all right, she's going to call you, and you're going to show up at the end.
Here's what before we got to like the very end where we go back and Bruno and Kamran are there. Here's what I wanted. I watched a stupid, dumb penultimate episode that felt like it was kind of climaxing and it was telling its story. And I think the show genuinely thinks it told its story, but it sucked. But so I'm sitting here. I'm watching her do her stupid thing with her grandmother and be like, this trail of stars, climb on my little platforms. I can't make stars, but I can make circles. And I sat there going, this is dumb. All I want is for there to be a fucking time skip. And episode 6 is just like her fucking in it. Just like purely Miss Marvel. She's been like Miss Marvel for like a year and she's got it down pat. And she's just like, it's just like an episode of her and just like taking down a villain. That's what I wanted so bad until we went back to New Jersey and they were just like, Department of Defense, remember, or Department of Damage Control, remember that? No.
Unrelated, but speaking of the future, you keep talking about how she's like making her costume piecemeal. There's also the bit where her mom picks up her necklace.
Her earring
like,
or something, wasn't it?
I don't know.
It was some jewelry, yeah.
She's like, it's broken. I'm like, there's the lightning bolt. Mm-hmm. That's the explanation for the lightning bolt, I guess.
Because Carol Danvers never wore it.
Which, whatever, fine. But she has not worn the costume yet. That means she's going to wear it in the finale. I saw pictures for the Marvels, or Captain Marvels, or whatever the
Marvels,
movie's
I
called.
think it is.
She has a brand new costume for that movie.
Well, yeah.
Because of course she does. Everybody does. But that means she's wearing the comic accurate costume for one episode. Probably not even the entire episode. Probably the final scene where after she solves Kamran's problem in the damage control, she's going to wear her full costume and the reveal is going to be her sitting on the light post like she was in the trailers or standing on a rooftop with her hands on her hips. And then it goes, Ms. Marvel
will return in
cuts
Marvels.
the credits. Yeah. And she's never going to wear that costume again, or she'll wear it at the beginning of the movie and then get a brand new one at the halfway point.
Who cares about damage control? Who the fuck are damage control?
Do you think Kamran is going to be a villain? Because I can't tell what they're doing with him. And when he shows up at Bruno's place, hobbling out of an alley like a meth addict, I thought
think so.
He was going to be like, I have powers now and I am like crazy. But then he's like fine and he's like friendly with Bruno and everything. And I was like, I guess like I don't want him to be antagonistic, but what is the show doing? And then the damage control people show up and blow up the building. And I was just like, what is this?
I don't think he's antagonistic.
I don't think he is either.
But I don't
But the show has been so fucking weird, and Marvel is so weird with just like changing people. I wouldn't be surprised if
he's
ends
also
with
another
him learning.
villain that's just like, it's you, but evil.
That's the other thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kamala comes and helps him with damage control, and then he goes, "Where's my mom?" And she says, "I'm so sorry. The portal opened and she disintegrated into bones."
I couldn't save her. And he's
then
like,
he's
well,
like,
I fucking hate you now.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I'm fucking crazy now. I'm fucking Baron Mordo in the Doctor Strange movie. I'm gonna kill all the wizards." I mean,
you're right. I don't know.
It's pessimism on my end, but I also just like, there's a pattern that I am following. It's my trail of stars.
I mean, you're not wrong. I would be baffled if at the end of this season, Kamran wasn't an antagonist because Kamala tried to save his mom and couldn't. I was reading something too, where I guess in one of the Miss Marvel series, Bruno and Kamala have like a falling out, and I was reading stuff about that. And I mean, if I cared about Bruno, I think that'd be cool.
If I cared about anybody, nobody is a character in the show except for Ms. Marvel, and that's barely. I mean, her family, everybody, her friends, her family, they all have quirks. There are characters in there. They're just not really allowed to do
What is the A plot?
They all get
the A plot is her
I don't know.
Grandmother following stars.
No, can't be.
But that's where everything...
It's treating it like that, but that doesn't come up until episode 3, I think.
No, but they talk about... But it's like the origin
fuck
of the
you,
bangle.
they don't.
It's the origin of the bangle, which is kind of like the through line.
But that's not the plot of the show.
Then you tell me what the A plot is.
There isn't one. A plot is Kamala gets powers. A plot is Kamala gets powers.
But it's an A plot only in the fact that it's like Kamala
It's
Khan
the only
is the main
through line
character.
from beginning to end.
But Kamala doesn't even like... That doesn't matter.
The A plot cannot be the lore of the Bangle because
This
it's
show
already
doesn't have an
resolved and
A-plot.
it wasn't brought up until episode 2 or 3. I think it was 3 because I think it was.
This show
I
doesn't
think it was the
have
same
an
episode
A-plot.
as the wedding.
It doesn't have an A plot. It's all Z plots.
And that's what I'm saying is like each episode introduces something and then resolves it by the end.
Remember how young we were 5 weeks ago when we sat there and we went, man, Nakia is so cool. And like she does cool things. And like there's this neat B plot with like Kamala's support characters. And then the show is just like, get fucked.
When Damage Control showed up, I don't know, I was like, I'm actually kind of down for a villain that isn't just evil Ms. Marvel. It's just, you know,
how
Kamala.
young
like,
we were. Remember when Damage
Control is nothing. The Jinn are nothing. The Bangalore is nothing. Her family is nothing. Her friends are nothing. Kamala is nothing. She's the closest to something, but she basically did everything she was going to do in the first 2 episodes, and everything else has just been her being the vehicle to get more of the other crap just shuffled around. It's a fucking 3-card Monty. Keep your eye on the Bangle.
Remember when Damage Control showed up? And we were like, oh, this will be neat. I'm so glad they're not doing a villain with evil powers. And then she ran away from Damage Control, and they're like, hi, I'm evil power version of you. And then the next episode, they're just like, also, I'm in prison. And then the next episode, they're like, also, I'm here. I broke out of prison. And then the next episode, they're like, also, I'm gone.
No, because it wasn't in the next episode they were in prison, the next episode they broke out. It was the next episode they were in prison and broke out.
Yeah.
That happened in one episode.
That happened in one scene.
Yes, one scene.
One scene they said.
In one episode, those villains
prison.
were introduced as allies, and then by the end of the episode, not even by the halfway point of that episode, they were revealed to be villains. Fooling no one.
I just can't. I feel so bad. I wanted to like this so much. And I think the slice of life stuff is pretty darn cool.
But it's already done. It was all in 2 episodes.
It's not done, Andrew. It's ignored. It's abandoned.
Correct. I stand corrected.
It's just...
Done implies completion.
Think about this.
I can't. The show won't.
We have one more episode left. And we are already done. Like, to be fair, we are talking like Miss Marvel is fucking over. We're going to see her in the Marvels. We're going to watch this shit next week. And we're going to sit there and be like, what in the world are they doing? We're going to watch them for 30 goddamn minutes, fight Damage Control. And the show's going to be like, remember Damage Control? Was a thing. And then in the last 15 minutes, she's going to be like, here's my new costume. I'm making the Marvels. And then that's going to roll credits. And they're going to be like, Miss Marvel will return in Marvels. And then the show's going to end. And we're going to sit here and hit record. And I'm going to go, I don't know what you want me to fucking say, Andrew. We already talked about how bad the show was, how much it missed the mark.
How much it missed the Marvel.
I don't know what's going to happen. This show is so hard to talk about because I try. I really try.
I told you last night, I had the episode done and I sat there for, I think, an hour and a half trying to figure out what to draw for the album art because there was nothing that actually happened in the episode. Nothing to make a joke about, nothing to even really reference. All I did, the joke in that, which I don't even know if you would know because I don't think you saw it
to be fair.
Encanto, is it was just stupid joke. It was from the movie Encanto. There's a song called like We Don't Talk About Bruno, and it's because Bruno is completely abandoned in that episode. That was the closest I could. That is the closest I could come to finding.
Dude, I can't come.
A joke.
Erectile dysfunction. But I was going to say, I would just have him burst through the top of the image, because that was funny.
I thought about that, and that sounded like more
that
work
sounded
than I wanted to
more
do
work than I ever thought you would ever do.
Because I had the same thing where I was going to draw, I also had a thing about like trying to draw something, some kind of, part of it is also like, I don't like to have any like dialogue and very minimal words. So I was like trying to figure out a way to like do a prison break thing, but I had like a joke, but it involved like more work than I wanted to deal with to do it completely.
That was the only I saw that and I was like, I guess I would say breaking through the ceiling, but
I thought that too, and I was just like, I didn't want to draw that. I didn't, because I'd have to look up, part of it is I would have to look up all of those stupid Jinn characters, and I don't know where I would find a picture unless I pulled up the episode again and paused it. They're all going to look like nobodies because they're all just like wearing shawls and crap, but like otherwise I'm just drawing like figures.
Haphazardly, weirdly breaking through the top of the panel.
And I was like, I gotta at least try and draw like something identifiable. So Ms. Marvel, I would prefer to be in there. I just was like, this sounds like so much work. Because I had the same idea, drop through the ceiling. And then I was just like, I'm gonna do this Bruno
But again,
joke.
People, like we said at
smile.
the beginning, people can like this stuff. It's fine. If you like it, great. More power to you. I'm glad you like it. I did not resonate with it. Again, we have one more episode. Maybe our minds are going to be fucking blown and we're going to be like, this was the best show Marvel has ever done. Don't think so. But like, I was reading some stuff before you hopped on because my episode went faster than yours. I guess I had it at 1.5 speed. I was reading stuff, what people thought. And I guess the difference is people love the scene. So you were saying, like, I don't know what to do. There's no scenes that matter. Nothing, I don't know what to draw. So here you go. Here's what the people want. They love
From this week?
From this episode. They love when her mom was like, I can get an app that tells me where my daughter is. People, quote unquote, paused the episode to laugh. It was so funny. And it's one of those things where it's like, I watched it and I understood the joke. It was fine.
Here's the thing about that joke. That joke was specifically weird to me because it paused for a half second of a beat where I went, they thought that was a good joke, and it was fine to me. Like, I get it. But then it immediately cuts. Like, it was not a long enough beat for that to be a beat for a joke. Because Marvel doesn't know how to let anything breathe. Not even, like, stupid little jokes like that.
And again, the internet is full of hyperbole. Who knows if any of this is actually whatever. But I mean, people were just like, I had to pause it because it was so funny. And that's the stuff that I'm sure is hyperbole, and I'm getting agitated over nothing. But like, this is who we are competing with. We sit down and we say, I'm really trying to like this episode, and it's just not, or the series, and it's just not good. And then you sit there and everyone else goes, and the competition goes, remember when her mom was like, spyware for parents? What? Wow! And I'm at complete odds. It's just, if that's you, more power to you. But as me, I don't get it. Didn't you watch 4.5 hours of just nothing and none of that mattered? And you heard someone be like, spyware for parents, and you went, this is great. Let me pause it to laugh.
What was it that you sent me where you said, oh, it was the Illuminati thing? Where some guy was arguing, someone said that, like, why would
Doctor Strange not know what the Illuminati was? Not just that rendition.
The joke is, they say Illuminati, and then he does the thing that every Marvel movie does, where he says Illuma what? But that is not a, like, made-up word. I mean, all words are made up, but
that is not a real
concept
unique to that universe.
Yeah, it is something he would know of because it's not even like a Marvel thing. I assume they are called the Illuminati the same reason they are in the comics, because the Illuminati just means it's like a secret society
that like runs things behind the scenes. Like, we're just like, yeah.
But some guy was like absolutely baffled that anybody would question this, and they're like, why would he know it's not his universe? It was a whole rabbit hole thing. But you asked me, like, does this guy actually not know what an Illuminati is?
Like, he never heard of it before that moment in the movie.
And I said, I honestly just like think these. I go off.
Tell the fans what you really think of them.
I think everyone is a moron until they prove otherwise, and I will say it straight to your fucking face.
I can't follow Miss Marvel's plot, so I'm with you. But I don't know. I mean, we talked about this earlier too, about, where I stand with Marvel, and it's all fine. And honestly, more power to them. Who is one man standing in the way of $1 billion media powerhouse? People like the MCU. I understand that I am the minority, but like, I feel like I'm either missing something or there's a gas leak. And a lot of it is just, and I think this holds true for you, and I mean, even between us, it holds true, but like, we just watch things for different reasons.
I talk with my coworkers sometimes about this stuff because they know I like comic books and nerd things. I have one coworker who is really into Star Wars, which I don't like Star Wars in general, but it's a nerd thing, so they always try and talk to me about it, and you have
a context for it.
But like I talk to these people about this stuff, and I like the idea that I get is like, and it's just different. I have always been like kind of a critic since, I don't know, early high school, middle school, something like that. I just started like evaluating things, and I don't know. I remember the first movie I walked out and went, movies can be bad, and it was Jurassic Park 3.
That was
the first revelation I ever had where I was
Jurassic Park 3 was the first movie that you said, I paid for this ticket and I am not utilizing the entire runtime. That was your first time you like walked out of a theater.
Oh no, I've never walked out of a movie in my life. I mean, when the movie was over, I left the theater and I went, that movie was
movies
bad.
Can be bad.
And I did not know movies could be bad. And it was like maybe a year or so after I saw like one of the Baby Genius movies, and I was just like, yeah, these are fine. Movies are just fun. But like, I talked to these people and I realized like they are just happy to have images flash in front of their face, and that's nothing against them.
And that's
I'm
hyperbole.
Not calling them
I
stupid.
would say the same thing. That's hyperbole on like.
I don't think it's hyperbole though. Like, I think they genuinely just want to watch things.
But it sounds bad. I'm trying to save our eyes.
I'm not calling them stupid, but I also am kind of calling them stupid.
You can like what you like, but you're wrong. I say that all the time.
But I will judge you. I think there's something, like, it's fine, but I know these people that just, like, it's also, like, I've told you before, I am baffled by people, like my coworkers, who just, like, they're like, I'm gonna go home and watch TV. And I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, I can't just, like, turn off. I'm, like, always doing, like, multiple things, and I I'm like, I can't just like watch a show. I gotta watch a show that's going to like impact me,
engage
or, like,
me,
at least give me something to think or talk about. And people are just like, I go home and I just like turn on TV. I just watch whatever's on. I got Disney Plus. I see there's like a new Star Wars thing. I don't know anything about Star Wars, but I just like turn it on and watch it, and I don't know what's going on.
It's like back with appointment television and like cable and like before DVR and streaming and all that stuff, when people would just be like, I just watched the new summer schedule of just like sitcoms. And I just like sit down at 8 o'clock and just watch a show. And it doesn't matter what that show is. And I had a similar experience where a couple years ago, I went with my in-laws to the very first Fantastic Beasts.
I remember you telling me about
And I remember we were all in the car, we were driving home, and they were just like, oh, what'd you think? And I was like, well, I didn't care for it. I had problems, and I kind of explained those. And they were just like, I mean, it's just a movie. And that was the point where I was like, I don't know how many of these conversations I can have with my in-laws. And from that point on, I just like never really said anything. I just was like, they're not interested in this conversation. I'm not going to try and engage them in this conversation that they're not interested in. They can like it. That's fine. If they ask me, I will say, whatever. I liked it. I didn't like it. I'm not going to go into what we do here. I'm not going to record an episode on it.
That's how the Marvel movies are with me, where these people know I like comic books, and they'll ask me like, what do you think? And I'll just be like, it was fine, or it was fun, or I didn't like it. And then they'll ask why, and then I'm just like, you do not want that context.
Yeah, you don't want this because you're going to sit there and be like, well, it's a movie. I mean, it's just a movie. Yeah, but don't you want something from it? I just can't.
And I say that as someone who loved Malignant, but it elicited something from
But the thing is, good or bad, who cares? I watch bad movies too. Who cares? It needs to engage me, and I have some sort of reaction to. And I want a reaction to something I watch. I try and give it the benefit of the doubt, sit down, tunnel vision in, let's watch it. Like you were saying with Malignant, and you liked it more than I did, and I also kind of went into it. I
mean, let's not mince words. I loved
Malignant. My world was changed with Malignant. No joke. And Kirsten thanks you.
Told you couldn't be friends with me.
No, she thanks you. She applauds you. Because I used to sit down. I was so impressed that Kirsten would just like, I could say, hey, I want to watch this movie. And she'd be like, I've never heard of it. And I'm just like, holy fuck. You're just like pure. You just like go into a movie and you don't have any sort of, you have no context. It could be anything. You didn't watch a trailer. You don't know what it's about. You've never heard of it before. And I used to do that. I used to sit her down and I'd be like...
That's what Melissa's like.
I'd be like, do you want to watch a movie? And she'd be like, yeah. And then I would just be like, fucking close your eyes, cover your ears. I'm going to boot this sucker up. I wouldn't tell her what it was because I was so impressed. Because I, at the very least had seen like, this is really good. You got to watch the best movie in the world. So I already had some sort of influence. But she didn't. She's pure white angelicness. And then I watched Malignant. And we had that discussion where I told you that I sat there for the first 30 minutes and I said, does Andrew genuinely like this? Does he think this is a good movie? How am I supposed to watch this? Am I supposed to be watching this as a bad movie? Am I supposed to be watching this as a good movie? Is this and I had an existential crisis. I finished, you talked, and then I went down to Kirsten and I said, I am so sorry. I get it. Because we'd sit down, I'd say, you want to watch a movie? And we'd sit down and watch fucking Schindler's List. And she'd be like, oh, I was in the mood to like watch like an hour and a half like rom comedy. And I'd be like, well, we watched fucking Schindler's List and you were not prepared. And that's how I was with Malignant. And ever since then, no joke, I have been like, all right, what do you want to watch? You want to watch this movie that's about this? It's this long. We got a comedy. It's about this. And I tell her, like, I give her the pitch. So she applauds you for Malignant. But like, going back to what we were
to be
saying,
fair, I watched Malignant for the first, I almost turned it off at the beginning. And I watched it for probably, like you said, the first half hour going like, is everybody on the internet an idiot? Or are we all just like hyperbolizing?
It's the Morbius meme. Who knows anymore?
But then once we got to like, the twist, I was like, I know what the twist is. Like, it's so obvious. It's so dumb. But then when it happened, I was like, I have never been more on board with a movie in my life. And I was absolutely convinced that the entire movie was one big, elaborate, expensive joke. Like, he was just given a blank check because they're like, James Wan, you made the Insidious or whatever. You made the Aquaman movie. Those made us huge bucks. You have this movie you want to make?
Make us
Go
big
for
bucks.
It. It's going to make us big bucks. And then he just cackled like a fucking lunatic as he spliced together the most incoherent nonsense the world has ever seen. I fucking loved it. And then I get a ton of joy out of just telling people to watch it without telling them what it is. Which I think is the way to watch it. If I had told you to watch it because it's crazy, I don't think it would have been crazy enough to really like do anything.
It's hard. There's the fine line there of...
Like, I needed you to see it the same way I saw it, which is...
I just needed to
people
know
said it was good.
That you did not to think it was genuinely a good movie.
It is not a good movie. It is a
Fun
fun
movie,
movie.
yeah.
It's like the same way that I love the movie Cats. It is an awful movie.
You said, I
but it is,
loved
like,
this
wild.
movie. And what you should have said is, I thought this movie is so fun. I loved it because it
Yeah,
was so
but I feel
fun.
like, again, that shows the hand too much.
Like I said, I just didn't know if you loved it, or loved it because it was bad. But again, going back to the beginning, at least it engaged, and you, definitely, me, to another extent. Which Miss Marvel, which is what we're here to talk about today, is not. And I wish I could engage with it like other people do. I mean, we are not MCU fans. I mentioned earlier today, I saw Transformers, I remember, was the first movie. I thought it was crazy at the time. My high school self was like, oh my God, we can see a sneak peek on Wednesday. The movie comes out on Thursday, but at Wednesday at 8 p.m. we can go see it. And I thought I was like breaking the law. And I did. And people cheered and it was fun. And that is what I think of when everyone's just, I sent you that picture today. It was like, what was the craziest part that you still think about the theater cheering for? And I know MCU fans love theater cheering and stuff like that. I don't. But it's something that I understand that's a part of me that I don't engage on movies at that level. I just don't care enough. People talk about hype a lot, whether it be movies or video games or something. I just don't know if I get hyped anymore. And I don't know where that change was, but I just kind of go into things now as like, all right, do something for me. Like, engage with
Dance.
me. Yeah, I mean, essentially, like, you have to kind of be on your own merit. And I definitely, see what the internet talks about things, and I have people that I follow, and I agree with their opinions for the most part. So if they say something's good, I tend to be like, well, I want to watch that. But at the same time, I still kind of go in, and I say, I mean, this better than anybody else. I go in, and I'm just like, I guess. But sometimes it really works. And I just, like, I can't see myself just being, like, watching credits and being like, yeah, I really watched a movie right then. And I feel like that's everybody else. And I'm just, like, missing something. Anyways, did we fill enough
Maybe
time?
it's overexposure. I mean, we watch a lot of movies.
A lot of it probably is overexposure. I mean, I will never deny that I have had Marvel fatigue from the very beginning, and it has not gotten better. So at least with MCU, there is definitely a Marvel fatigue thing. I will say, even though the Marvel fatigue was there, I genuinely went into every episode of Miss Marvel. Again, we still have one more to watch. But I genuinely went into every episode of Miss Marvel being like, I'm trying.
If it starts trying to, then I'm okay.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's just, like you said, we take in a lot of media. We talk about a lot of media. Obviously, we don't record it, but like we talk about anything that either of us has seen or engaged with or something, we usually bring it up. And we usually have things to say, good or bad, probably both. And I think because that is just kind of how our mind works.
Our unimind that we both share.
Our singularity. That's just how we engage with media. And it's not to say that we watch them correctly and they watch them wrong. It's just like, that's just how I engage with media. And like we said, people just turn it on and watch it and they're just like, things happened in front of me. That was fun. And I just can't engage with it that way anymore. I needed to do something. But did we fill enough time? Do you have anything to say? We haven't even talked about Miss Marvel for a long time. And I don't even know where we started.
I don't think there's anything left to say. So, Seth? Give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
All right. I thought I would not be able to figure something out, but here we are. First put-up, I don't disagree with you that I think the scene with her mom and grandmother at the end was kind of rushed. It could have used a little bit more time to have that moment, but I do find those moments a lot of fun. Even at the very, very end, when they're looking at when her grandmother's talking about her mom's like rebellious phase and stuff like that. Again, all the interactions between Kamala and her family, I think, are a lot of fun to watch. I think the actors do a great job. My second put up is going to be at the very end, in a similar vein, when Cameron's talking to Bruno. I thought that was engaging. Again, I'm not super invested in these characters because the show couldn't get me invested in these characters, but it felt genuine. I did like the bit where Cameron was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I called you Brian or whatever. I think that's decent stuff. My put down is going to be, I felt so bad during the train station because the show wanted me to care. The show wanted me to be invested. The show presented a situation and presented a direction that said, this is stressful. Things culminated. And I just did not care. And I just had to sit there and watch things play out that didn't matter to me, that felt like they should have been bigger than they were, that felt like I should have been more engaged and invested than I was. And I genuinely felt bad for the show at that point.
My first put up is when they try and go into the portal and then they turn into a big old purple crystal and then the crystal shatters and their skeletons are falling out. I thought that was funny.
Apparently fairly similar to a bit in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah, maybe that was supposed to be an homage to the Inhuman cocoon, because Inhumans.
That's what they were saying.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, okay. Second put up, like I said, the scene with her mother and her grandmother, like there's good stuff in there. I just didn't really feel like it felt kind of like nothing, rushed. Honestly, how long was this episode? It felt really, really short. And it might have just been the first chunk was so long, but I felt like we got back and then I blinked and it was over. But I think my second put up is going to be, I liked at the beginning when the Marvel logo, I hate the Marvel logo.
I was going to say that, but that was one of my little too meta.
My put down, I had a really clear put down when I was watching it and I don't remember what it was. So I think my put down is going to be, I was going to say the overall brevity of everything, but that could just be the entirety of the show. My put down is going to be that Kamala actually goes back into the past and is part of that history.
We never did talk about that.
I think symbolically, I get what they're probably going for there. I just personally hate a story that is not time travel having time travel like that, because it felt shoehorned in. I don't really understand how the Bangle does time travel. It didn't seem to be a thing that it could do. Not that we really know what it can do, so it can basically do anything they want it to do, but it just felt like magical convenience that rather than a real explanation or a story that needed to happen. I felt like they probably were just like, this is the closest she's going to get to connecting with her culture and her history and her family by literally going into the past. But it's like kind of a nothing thing, and it's just kind of like the explanation doesn't make any sense. Granted, the explanation for any of the abilities, if anybody has, don't really make sense, but it really just doesn't fit here. And I don't, and the cheeky way that it felt like it was like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Did you get it? Did you see how we set this up and it paid off? And I went, as soon as you said a trail of stars, I knew what you were talking about. I saw her powers. I know what they look like. You're not fooling me. So, I don't know. I was irritated by that.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with Interference.
Watcher.
Seth, now the mic's off.
Andrew, I'm
What are we
so
watching?
glad you asked. We're going to watch this. I guess there's one more episode of this, but somehow. I mean, we got to fight evil version of you, player 2 version of Kamala, and then I guess that's it. But also, we're going to watch Thor tomorrow, but we're not going to give it to you until 2 weeks. So take that, listeners. Go watch Malignant.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
I can't believe we have another episode of Ms. Marvel.